Jake had been working the graveyard shift at 7-Eleven for almost a year. It was quiet most nights, drunks stumbling in for beer, late-night snackers grabbing a microwave burrito. The usual. But then there was him, the man who never bought anything. He would show up between 2 and 3 a.m., like clockwork. Always wearing the same grimy hoodie, his face partially hidden under the fluorescent lights. He never spoke, never browsed. He just stood near the back of the store, hands in his pockets, watching. At first, Jake brushed it off, probably just some local weirdo. But then he noticed something chilling. Every time the man was there, the security cameras glitched. The screens would flicker with static, and Jake could swear, for just a second, the man's face would appear on every single monitor, staring back at him. One night, he decided to confront him. "Hey man, if you're not buying anything, you gotta go." The man turned slowly. From beneath his hoodie, his lips curled into a smile. "I already paid." Jake blinked. "What?" The man's smile widened. "I bought you." The store went pitch black. When the lights flickered back on, Jake was gone. The only sign he had ever been there was his 7-Eleven name tag lying on the counter. The cameras never showed what happened. Only a black screen. And at 2:47 a.m. the next night, a new cashier took his place. A man in a grimy hoodie. Nina had been on the road for hours. It was past midnight when she pulled into the only open 7-Eleven in the middle of nowhere. She needed coffee, maybe something to eat. The place was empty except for the cashier, a lanky man with sunken eyes, and the roller grill where hot dogs had been spinning for far too long. One of them caught her attention. It didn't look right. The meat was shriveled, the color slightly off, as if it had been there for years. "Fresh," the cashier said, suddenly making her jump. "Go on, it's free." She didn't want to be rude. Hesitantly, she grabbed a bun and placed the hot dog inside. The moment she took a bite, a foul taste exploded in her mouth. Rotten, rancid, wrong. She gagged, running to the trash. But before she could spit it out, something moved inside the bun. She screamed, dropping it. The hot dog writhed, tiny black veins pulsing under its skin. It twitched, twisted, then split open, revealing dozens of tiny, wriggling things that spilled onto the floor. Nina staggered back, bile rising in her throat. "What the—" The cashier simply smiled. "You shouldn't waste food." Her stomach clenched in agony. She looked down at her hands. Black veins crawled up her arms, spreading under her skin. The last thing she heard before everything went dark was the sound of something wet slithering up her throat. Marcus was on his third shift at the 7-Eleven just off Route 22. His manager had warned him about the back freezer. "Don't open it," she had said. "If you hear knocking, ignore it." That was all. No explanation, just a warning. At first, it seemed like a joke. But on his second night, he heard it, faint, rhythmic knocking from behind the freezer door, like someone was inside. It got louder, desperate. Boom, boom, boom. Marcus stood frozen. His manager's warning echoed in his head, but the sound, whoever was in there, needed help. He grabbed the handle and yanked the door open. The freezer was empty. Just rows of ice cream and frozen burritos. But the knocking hadn't stopped. It was coming from inside the walls. His breath hitched. The pounding grew frantic, echoing all around him. Then, a sound, something scraping, crawling, moving behind the metal. And then, whispers. "Help! It's so cold!" Marcus stumbled backward, heart hammering, his breath fogged in the icy air. And then he felt it, a soft, freezing hand press against his back. The freezer door slammed shut. By the time his manager arrived in the morning, the store was empty. The only thing left behind was a single frozen burrito lying in the middle of the floor. And from inside the freezer, the knocking continued. It was a slow Wednesday night, and Tony was manning the register alone. The usual late-night crowd came and went, truckers grabbing coffee, teens sneaking in for energy drinks. Around 1:30 a.m., a man in a blue hoodie walked in. Tony barely looked up. The guy moved through the aisles slowly, like he was looking for something specific. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Tony glanced at the security monitor. The man was in the back of the store, standing between the snacks and drinks, facing away from the camera, just standing there. "Need help finding something?" Tony called out. No response. He checked the monitor again. The man was gone. Tony frowned. He hadn't heard the door chime. He checked every aisle. The store was empty. Confused, he rewound the security footage. There he was, the man in the blue hoodie, walking into the store. But as Tony fast-forwarded, something made his stomach drop. The man never left. He was standing in the same spot for over 10 minutes, and then he was just gone. No movement, no distortion in the footage. One frame he was there, the next, empty space. A cold chill ran down Tony's spine. He checked the stockroom, the restroom, even the cooler. Nothing. Then, a beep. The self-checkout lit up. "Please scan your items," the robotic voice said. But there was no one there. And on the security monitor, aisle 3's camera was glitching, static, flickering over an empty spot where the man had been. Tony didn't work the night shift after that. Jenny had just started working nights at 7-Eleven. It was an easy gig, stocking shelves, ringing up customers, cleaning up spills. But the worst part? The giant glass windows at the front of the store. At night, they became like mirrors, reflecting the fluorescent lights inside. One night, around 3 a.m., Jenny was wiping down the coffee station when she glanced at the windows. She froze. There was someone standing outside, a man in a gray, facing the glass, completely still. She turned around. The parking lot was empty. Heart pounding, she looked back. He was still there. But something was wrong. His reflection didn't match up. It was slightly off, like the shelves were arranged differently behind him. She could even see herself in the reflection, but her back was turned. A sense of dread crept over her. Slowly, she lifted her hand and waved. The reflection of the man didn't move. Then, her reflection turned to face her. She gasped and spun around. There was nothing behind her. The store was empty. When she looked back, everything was normal. The store reflected as it should be. No, anything. She told herself she was just tired, maybe seeing things. Every night after that, she felt it, that something was watching. And sometimes, in the corner of her eye, she could still see a figure in the glass, waiting.